Welcome to the Nest Podcast, your weekly home for sports news, video game reviews, and hot takes with your hosts, Brandon, Zach, and Justin. Enjoy the show.
What is up, guys, and welcome to another episode of the Nest Podcast. This is episode number 88. Actually, we had a conversation about this earlier today about the number 88 and who the significant player of the day should be. And Justin, you cried pretty hard for Tony Gonzalez. Let's be honest.
Cried. No, I just thought that comparing Tony Gonzalez to Gronkowski was a slap in the face, regardless of who he played for.
Well, for the record, Rob Gronkowski was episode number 87, and this is episode number 88, the Tony Gonzalez episode, and it's presented by Sportzilla. I'm your host, Brandon. Joining me are my co-hosts, Zach and Justin. Fellas, what's up?
Here we are. Another day of quarantine.
Another day of quarantine, another day of no live sports actually taking place of any kind, and we're just sitting here trying to come up with material to talk about for a sports show. Tough times, gentlemen. Tough times. That being said, I've seen a lot of people online kind of creating their own sports content, creating their own entertainment in those genre of sports lately because there's nothing else. And one of the questions that have been floating around quite a bit is, who is the most overrated and who is the most underrated quarterback in the NFL? And guys, I want to know, what do you guys think? And I want to know what our listeners think. So if you're out there and you have an opinion on it, go ahead and let us know in the comments and we'll talk about it. Who's the most overrated? Let's do who's the most overrated first. Justin, you want to lead off?
Yeah, I'm going to go with somebody that's just recently been talked about, and I'll give my reason behind it. But I think Teddy Bridgewater is a little bit overrated. He was thrown into basically the perfect offense for him to shine based on his abilities. And until I see him do that with his own team or, as a starter for the season, I believe there's a little too much hype behind our boy right now. And I just think he's the most overrated today.
Well, I mean, you mentioned that he was brought into a perfect offensive team. He went 5-0 with the Saints whenever he was filling in for Drew Brees, and Drew Brees came back and lost his second game back. So Teddy had something clicking, even though he had that perfect team. Zach, who are you going to go with?
I've got Kyler Murray as my most overrated. I think to say that one season of football is enough to say that he's good or whatever people are saying about him is entirely too little. And speaking of little, I think he's far too small for the position at the National Football League level. Sure, there's several other quarterbacks, especially Drew Brees, that is shorter, that does well. But I just don't think he has that same kind of caliber. I think eventually he'll play out to be just another run-of-the-mill kind of quarterback, Marcus Mariota style. He hasn't shown me anything. He doesn't have any ability that's amazing to me. And I wouldn't say he's overly sought after or people talk about him a whole lot, but there's enough for me to say, this is too much talk of this guy. Like, he hasn't shown us anything. So,
I mean, yeah, you bring up good points, but the fact that they just added D-Hop is going to make him look a lot better going forward. So I don't know if that's going to be a good take in the long run, because he's got the pieces now to prove that he can be a good quarterback, and they're going to make him look a lot better. For me, personally, I was debating back and forth. All of you know that I'm an Aaron Rodgers hater. I hate the guy. You guys know that I don't really care for Patrick Mahomes too much. But to give credit where credit is due, those guys are good. I was sitting here going back and forth in my mind, and and I don't know. I want to say that it's Dak. I want to say that Dak is the most overrated. A guy that came out recently and said that he wanted $34 million or he couldn't support his family on $34 million a year. He's not worth $34 million in my opinion, but is he the most overrated in the NFL? I don't know. I also tend to think that in 2020, the most overrated quarterback is Tom Brady.
Oh,
I stayed away from that just because I didn't want to say it, but that's on you. That's your boy.
Tom Brady is a 43-year-old quarterback going to a new offense. He's got to gel with a brand new offensive line, a brand new receiving core, a brand new group of backs, a brand new head coach. He's never played for anybody other than Bill Belichick. But people are already putting the Bucks in the Super Bowl.
Not me.
he damn sure isn't worth what he got paid too.
So I want to know what you guys think about underrated. What do you guys think about the most underrated? Allison seemed to like what I had to say about Tom Brady there at the end.
We could have shit on Dak Prescott pretty bad, and he made my short list for most overrated. But what swayed me away from him was the fact that not many people are actually overrating him.
Yeah,
For whatever reason, he has decided to just say that he is worth this much, but hardly anyone else, even a lot of Cowboys fans, the ones that know what they're talking about, say that he's not that great. He had an amazing breakout year, and it's been downhill ever since. So that's why he didn't make my most overrated.
Yeah.
Yeah, he had one great season, and then that was pretty much it.
Yep.
Didn't have much to offer from then on.
Yep. But as far as underrated, I was kind of on a toss-up. And I eventually went with a guy who did very well for me in a fantasy football season a couple years ago, and that's Tyrod Taylor. Of course, he has not been a starter the past couple of years through maybe his fault, maybe not. It's hard to say. I don't know the politics of football. But if you look at his seasons where he was a starter with the Buffalo Bills, he did as good as Kyler Murray or a little bit worse. So 2015, 3,000 yards, 20 touchdowns, 6 picks. And Kyler Murray last year did 3,700 yards, 20 touchdowns, and 12 picks. And Tyrod's other 2 years were relatively the same, a little less touchdowns, but no more interceptions. And for whatever reason, the guy just couldn't land a starting position. He was back up to Baker Mayfield with the Browns. He's moved on since. I think he's with the Chargers now. And he's just one of those guys that when I had him as my starting quarterback when he was with the Bills, he did amazing. Never had a bad week. I'm pretty sure he does not get injured. And for whatever reason, he's kind of like Teddy Bridgewater in that regard, where he just couldn't land a starting position. And I don't know what that means. I don't really know if he's fallen off or whatnot, but to me, he's a good quarterback that is better than some of these guys who are getting paid a lot of money.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean that's definitely a good option. Tyrod, he had some opportunities to lead a few different teams, but he never had a solid team around him. One of those teams that he did get to lead was the Buffalo Bills for a short time. My most underrated quarterback is the current quarterback of the Buffalo Bills, Josh Allen. And I think this season's really going to showcase his skills because he was able to acquire Stephon Diggs in the offseason. Now they've got a big playmaker that they can throw out there with the offense that they already have. Gentlemen, the Bills win the AFC East this year, and Josh Allen is a big reason why.
Yeah, they were a big team last year too.
Yeah, I mean they scratched their way into the playoffs there at the end, but without the Patriots being the tremendous mountain to climb that they have been for the past 2 decades, the Bills suddenly look around and they're the strongest team in the AFC East.
Yep.
What do you got, Justin? Who do you think the most underrated quarterback out there is?
I'm going to give you 2. And the reason I'm going to give you 2 is because the one, I don't know if he's playing this year or not. I don't think he is. But my boy Phillip Rivers has never gotten what he deserves. He's always average to a great quarterback and never gets talked about his whole career. And I think his lifetime, he's one of the most underrated quarterbacks to ever play the game. But for sakes for next year, I'm going to say Jameis Winston. Yes, he had a ton of interceptions. And I don't know if it was his eye problem or what. It could be just be whatever. But he's still in his prime. He's still young. He's still strong. He's still got all those tools to be a great quarterback. And he still threw for over 5,000 yards. So let's not forget about that. Regardless, he had 30 interceptions. But I just feel like right now he's the most underrated because people are basically just saying he don't even deserve to be quarterback in this league, which is not true.
Yeah, I mean, he might be a very good quarterback next year. He did get LASIK, and we've said it before, that seems to be a big issue with him. I mean, it makes total sense. If you can't see your player or the opponent and you toss it up there, you've got a 50-50 shot of hitting your guy or hitting the other guy. And he kind of evened out on that. So if his eyesight really was the problem and he's fixed that now, who knows what can happen. So this is his definitive year.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the draft is coming up. I think by the next time we come live on the podcast, the draft will be over. So we'll be able to at least talk about that. With that being said, Joe Burrow has been touted as the number one pick going to the Cincinnati Bengals since the day the season ended. What if somebody like the Bengals took a gamble on Jameis Winston, who is a proven NFL quarterback, and decide to draft somewhere else or decide to trade that pick to somebody who is quarterback hungry, and the Bengals start a rebuild around Winston instead of Burrow?
That would be a great move for them.
And we said it last week, I would give up that number one pick instantly. And there's so many quarterbacks out there that are just don't have jobs right now. I'm not going to take my chances and go all in, especially if I'm the Browns, who we talked about going up there and getting that pick. We're not going to go all in, and I've had 26 quarterbacks in 10 years. I'm going to go get that All-American lineman. I'm going to go get that, defensive tackle. I'm going to get those ugly players, the people that don't get talked about, and I'm going to build my team around the talent that's already in the NFL, like Winston. There's not a quarterback more NFL ready right now in the draft better than Winston. I don't care what anybody says.
Yep, I agree. I think the gamble to go for Winston is much less than to go for Joe Burrow. One season of play in the collegiate level is not enough to say he is the number one quarterback. He is our guy. All in on him. You can't do it. It time and time again, it doesn't work out for the teams that do that.
Yeah, and then another guy that's floating out there that's a former league MVP is Cam Newton. That's another guy that could be a huge wild card going into the draft. What if one of these teams that we think is going to go after one of these young quarterbacks decides to take on Cam Newton and decides that that's the quarterback that they're at least content with for the next 2, maybe 3 years going forward?
Yeah, and you don't have to give up anything to get Cam now because he's cut.
He's a free agent. Yeah,
you don't have to trade shit. So another great pickup. He may have the injury bug, and that's something that we'll see here in the future. But again, I mean, you don't have to give up a whole lot to get him.
Nope.
And I think of a man versus a kid. When it comes to that, I mean, do you want a man leading your team or do you want a kid leading your team? I mean, and I understand but look what the Patriots did. They got Garoppolo. They bred him for all those years, turned him into a legitimate starting quarterback, and he never played it down. He went to San Francisco.
Well, he did play when Tom was injured.
I know, but I'm saying he didn't play enough. He didn't.
Right.
All that time that the Patriots put in, they didn't get the return they expected to get.
Yep.
So that's the chance you take when you get a quarterback. You say you throw him behind somebody, you can invest all this time and money into him and then trade him off or whatever.
But at the same time, not every team has an ageless wonder like Brady, like the Patriots had.
It's true, but
not every quarterback's going to be as productive as he has been throughout his upper 30s and now into his 40s. You're not going to get that same kind of productivity from Andy Dalton. You're
No.
not going to get that same kind of productivity from Ryan Fitzpatrick. You're not going to get that from Tannehill. You're not going to get that from a lot of these guys around the league. Everybody's not Tom Brady.
Yep. There's 2 or 3 guys that are his age that can do what he's doing, and it's Drew Brees and Roethlisberger and him, basically.
And we'll see. We'll see about Roethlisberger if he can come back from this injury. We'll see if Tom Brady can live up to the hype in Tampa Bay and adjust to all those new things that he's got to deal with. We'll see if Drew Brees can go out there and do it one more time. I heard something about he's already planning on going to NBC after he retires and all this stuff. Like he's already got one foot in the grave as far as that's concerned.
Yep. And he was injured last year. I mean, yes, it was just a thumb injury, but he's older. That affected him for sure. Absolutely 100% affected him last year. And he might be fully rehabbed by now, but we don't know.
Imagine if he does get injured, something, small again like that, like his thumb, and they have to run Taysom Hill out there to take, 30, 40 snaps per game.
Yeah, we'll see what he's about too.
I guess so. I know Harvey, one of our viewers, has been harping about this kid being the truth for the past 2 seasons. And to his credit, if Hill does become something relevant, then I will give Harvey all due in calling it early because he's been on this kid's bandwagon for a long time. But I just see him as a Julian Edelman type player, a guy that's tough and physical and can go out and catch a slant and take a hit.
Yeah, he'd be much better suited in the wide receiver position.
I think so too, and I think eventually that's got to be the plan in New Orleans. So maybe that's a team that might be hungry to move up to get a Joe Burrow. He went to college at LSU. The New Orleans fan base would sure love it.
I don't think they would give up. I don't think they would go up that high to get him. I don't.
They would have to give up a shit ton, but I mean,
have to give up their whole draft. I see if Joe Burrow is going to go to the Bengals, to the Browns, he's going to go to one of those teams that are perennial quarterback getters, the ones that always get up there at the first round and take a quarterback. And I hate it for that, guys. It's like the better you are, that sets people like Tua and these other guys up because they know they're going to go to a decent team. If you're the best player coming out of football, you're like, shit, I'm going to be a Brown. Like, that's in the back of your head.
Yeah, that's true. That's very true.
I mean, it basically makes the other guy look much better than the so-called the star, I guess you would say.
Yep.
To round it back out, Justin, you were talking about Phillip Rivers. It is going to be interesting to see how he adjusts. Thanks for the comment there, Dylan. That's very true. He's another older guy that's been around the league, but has only played for one team his entire career. Granted, he has had several coaches come through when he was in San Diego and then LA. And then, now he's just adjusting to another new coach, but it's also a completely new team, a new organization. So we'll see about Phillip this year too. That will be an interesting adjustment for him.
I wonder what his career would have been like if he would have gone to a decent team and not stuck it out with the Chargers.
Yeah, if maybe he would have went to Denver whenever Peyton Manning went to Denver. If that would have been Phillip Rivers on that team, would they had still won a Super Bowl, maybe 2?
It's a great question.
Mm-hmm.
We could sit here and play fantasy matchmaker all day, and I guess with no sports on TV, now's the time to do it. But
I wonder if he's kicking himself in the ass for that. I'm assuming he stuck around. One, San Diego is amazing, and he just had to move up to LA later on. So I don't blame him there. But I wonder if he just had a sense of loyalty to San Diego for taking the chance on him and letting Drew Brees go. So he said, you know what? I'm going to stick it out. You guys were loyal to me, so I got to be loyal to you, and whatever happens, happens. And I mean, he had decent to good players around him, just never worked, or they fell off, or whatever happened. And it just sucks. I've always wondered that about him. Had he had a better situation, what would have happened?
He's consistently strong. He's consistently good. I think he's one of those guys that just likes to be in the shadows, and that's what you get for San Diego. If you ever see a San Diego home game, there's more fans of other teams than there are Chargers fans, which is sad. And because of that, I don't see I don't know. I don't see him being around much longer. The whole Chargers, regardless of where they're at, I don't see him being around much longer.
Yeah, I kind of see that too. LA is big, but I don't know if they're big enough.
Nobody's coming.
Yeah, I don't know if they're big enough for 2 NFL teams.
They definitely didn't need to move 2 franchises there to have 2 teams.
No.
If they would have expanded to create a new team or just moved 1 team there, I think it would have been fine. But trying to force the issue with 2 teams, that was pointless.
Yeah.
The draft is coming up. We were talking about that earlier, and it's going to be historic one way or another, because this draft is going to be done much like how we do our live stream show on the internet. It's going to be emceed by Roger Goodell from his basement. And I wonder how it's going to go over, because apparently they've got about 58 participants, prospects signed up to kind of set up a live webcam somewhere in their house, and they're going to join it.
I'm going to tell you how it's going to be. It's going to be freaking awesome. Let me tell you why. The ones that are in the green room, they can't cheer now like they used to, so they hug each other or whatever. They walk out on stage, which takes forever. Do all that bullshit that they have to do with Goodell or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
The best ones are the late picks, are the ones that are done through camera, and their families behind them going crazy, and they're having a party, and the dad's throwing the hat on the kid, and they're crying, and that's how all these picks are going to be this year.
Mm-hmm.
I just think that every pick's going to be like excitement, like you to see like their family and everybody going crazy for them and seeing how happy they are. When they're in the green room, they don't get to show that emotion. They like walk through like like they got a job.
It's already the business. Yeah.
Yeah. So
I'm sure they're. Go ahead.
I was going to say Goodell. I said it like that, whatever. I said it wrong, but he gets booed every time he goes out anyway. So shit, we don't get to have to watch him hug everybody, shake hands. That's awesome. I'm down for it.
Yeah, and I think those young kids are nervous to be on that huge stage, to be picked by like that. So if they're at home, like you said, they're more themselves. They're surrounded by their family and stuff, and there are people that are excited for them. They're not just in a green room hearing camera people and all those people do their thing. They're in their natural habitat. That's where you see Dwayne Haskins do his little attitude type thing. I don't think he would have done that had he been on the stage the actual number 1 picks were. So I think you'll see a lot more of the personal side of the fans or of the players. I think it'll be really fun, and I wonder if it'll catch on.
I was going to say one of the things that I'm really looking forward to is whenever you have a pick where a couple of guys are kind of questionable about where it might be picked. Obviously Joe Burrow's supposed to go number 1. The guy from Ohio State, I can't think of his name off the top of my head, selected to go number 2 for months now. But what about whenever they get down to 14 and 15 and they haven't, maybe they'll take this tight end, maybe it'll be this linebacker, who the hell knows? But you could put 2 or 3 people on the screen at the same time so you can see the look on their face of, oh, good, I'm glad I didn't get drafted by the fucking Lions, or, oh, yeah, I got drafted by the Green Bay Packers. I'm stoked about it. Whatever the case may be, I want to see it, because as a fan of those teams, they want to know, well, is he excited to come here? What was his first reaction?
Mm-hmm.
Like Justin was saying, when they're in the green room, they have to try to keep it business. So if you get drafted by that shitty team that you weren't excited about, it's still like, well, all right, they're going to pay me. Let me put on the hat, hold up the jersey and smile. You guys are right. I think it will be good. And I'm excited for it because it'll give us something fresh and new to talk about. But it's also exciting because it is a historic draft. It's going to be one that everyone remembers.
Yep. The internet draft. And I wonder if it'll continue. I doubt it, but I just wonder, it's got to be a lot cheaper to do it this way and a lot easier, because you can just blast it out everywhere. Who gives a shit about whether it's on NBC or whatever network? Just put it out everywhere. That way people can easily access it and then watch it. And I wonder if maybe sometime, some way, they'll eventually start doing it more and more this way.
Yeah, like I said, like y'all said, if it blows up, I mean, I understand these kids. It's an honor to be called into the green room. You know what I mean? They get to dress up and do all this stuff. So there's going to be some pageantry behind it. But usually they don't put a camera. They don't show every pick, and this will give a lot more kids that option to be viewed and to be seen. If that makes sense, the camera will be on more people than it normally is.
Yeah.
Just like whenever, I don't know if y'all remember, but when Tack McKinley got drafted from Atlanta, he's the one that had the picture of his grandmother, right? And he came down, he was like, GD in this and saying how he was going to bust the quarterback's head and do all this stuff. And then it was a big ordeal. And they're saying, that he had a bad attitude or whatever. Dude, that got me fired up. I knew that this guy right here, even though he was an idiot and he wasn't thinking, he's still a kid, let's face it. But I knew that he was ready to play. Like, he was so emotional. I knew that he was going to go out there and bust somebody's head. And I can't wait to see, like, if he had his homeboys around him, you know what I'm saying? Like, firing him up, like how much more it would be. And I think that's what we're going to see. We're going to see some football buddies around these guys, and they're going to be slamming beers or something crazy is going to happen. And I can't wait to see what it is.
For sure. I'm excited too.
Like a keg stand draft pick or something.
I would assume people will keep it pretty PG,
Yeah,
but I mean, you never know. It's their chance to go kind of viral too at the same time.
Yeah, and with limited ESPN crew and talking heads that will be available and things of that nature, we may get more time with these prospects and with these kids that are having these parties at their houses or whatever. And you may get to know them a lot better, and those fan bases will get to know them. And it's definitely going to be exciting. And, Atlanta's excited for a number of reasons. Justin mentioned the Falcons with their bad boy draft pick a moment ago, but Atlanta's excited right now. And part of that's because of the addition of Todd Gurley to the squad. But there's been a little bit of beef lately about Todd Gurley wearing the number 21. Justin, what do you think? Should Todd Gurley be able to wear 21, or is that something special that should be hung up for Deion Sanders?
Zach actually said it best. I think Deion's a legend and he needs to be respected as such. I mean, he's a first ballot Hall of Famer. We all know what Deion did and what he's still doing, even in the commentary. But like Zach said, if Atlanta didn't hang his jersey up in the rafters, then it's not his say to say whether Gurley wears it or not. I mean, as a man, I would have personally chose to wear a different number. But hell, if Gurley wants to throw 21 on his back and he wants to do it, he has all the right to do it. I mean, that's...
Well, and Desmond Trufant wore the number 21 for the past 7 seasons. So
he was a corner, though. I can see where, Deion wanted to keep it kind of in that position. But
it does seem like it turns out that it was just a joke on Deion Sanders' part, that he wasn't really upset or anything like that. But that begs the question, why doesn't the Falcons do the retiring of the jersey, and all they do is they put them up in the Ring of Honor? Apparently they don't do that for any of their greats. So when Matt Ryan's gone and retired, they won't be retiring his number as well.
I don't know why they do that. I mean, the Ring of Honor, it's obviously an honor to be in the Ring of Honor, but I don't know why Atlanta doesn't retire jerseys. I honestly don't know. Maybe I can look that up and have a better answer next week, but it's kind of weird to me as well. You figure if you've got the ones that come through that are that good, it's only going to be a handful that's going to be affected. Why not? And maybe they don't want a lot of these numbers are common of the greats. A lot of the greats have a common number, and maybe they don't want another diva to come in and have a big argument or a big money deal or something go wrong over a dang jersey number, which could happen. I don't know.
Sure. I mean, those are all good points, but and that would suggest that the Falcons have a lot of forward thinking with their rules and their policies. A team that certainly doesn't seem to have a lot of forward thinking is the Houston Texans, because they are at it again. Last month they let D-Hop go in a trade that he basically was let go for the peanut vendor, and now they go out and they grab Brandon Cooks, who spent the majority of the last 2 seasons laid up with concussions. Guys, do you think replacing one of the best receivers in the game with an injury-prone dude is a good idea?
Sure, if you're trying to punish the city of Houston.
And why is it that they would be punishing the city of Houston, Zach?
Something about their baseball team did some cheating or something. It was a very, very short-lived story.
For the sins and transgressions of the Houston Astros, Zach. That is the reason, because the Houston Astros cheated the baseball world.
I'd love to hear what the GM has to say. I mean, he's making the worst deals that I've seen in a long time.
I mean, Cooks is great talent. If he was able to stay healthy for an entire season, then Deshaun Watson would have 2 pretty good deep threats in Cooks and Will Fuller. But that doesn't replace D-Hop. Maybe he's a lot cheaper than D-Hop. But
damn, how much cheaper can you be? I still wouldn't trade D-Hop for. I mean, they only got a 4th round pick out the guy, and arguably one of the top 3 receivers in the league. In his prime, like young prime. I don't know. He's probably going to sell the team. I'll be honest with you. I don't think he gives a shit. He can't.
That's possible.
Unless he's got some kind of like mastermind that we ain't seen yet, which I don't know, man. Brandon Cooks ain't part of it if that's his plan.
No, absolutely
it's crazy to me. It's kind of like he went rogue. Like somebody was like, "You won't do it," and he's like, "Bullshit." And, you know what I mean? Like one of those type of bets. But I don't know what's going on, man. It's crazy.
Yeah, it absolutely is. It's all crazy. The XFL calls it quits in the middle of all this. Zach, you were the one that kind of broke the news to me about that. What do you guys think about that? Just out of nowhere, XFL has to call it quits for good.
There's even more news about that too. They've actually filed for bankruptcy now.
Wow.
And they're citing the whole COVID-19 pandemic as one of the reasons, which makes sense. They couldn't finish out their season. I'm sure they were banking on all that revenue that they weren't able to get. Yeah, I mean, when you think you have a good thing going, something like this just derailed the entire league, and it's sad to see because they had a very good product. I was very excited to see how the league progressed. The rules were great. It wasn't gimmicky. People relatively enjoyed it. I don't think it would have ever overtaken the NFL, but I don't think it needed to. I think it was the thing to watch after the NFL season. And it was perfect. It had its perfect little spot in the world. And this just derailed it, and it doesn't seem like they're going to survive it, which really sucks.
Yeah, and the timing of it is what kind of gets me. I get that they didn't get their revenue, their TV deals, their attendance, their jersey sales, and all that stuff. But it makes me wonder if the impact of the live attendance of the WWE events, the live shows, the Monday Night Raws, the SmackDowns, the pay-per-views, they just did WrestleMania in front of 0 fans. Normally that attracts 70, 80,000 people for just that one singular event. They pack out that entire week full of events that they sell out. That's a lot of money lost. And I wonder if it was just ultimately too much for Vince McMahon to handle.
Yeah, I wouldn't doubt it. I would imagine, what's his name? The Luck that was the commissioner, Oliver Luck.
Yeah.
I'm assuming he came to Vince or whoever makes the decisions and said, "Look, we're at a breaking point here," and Vince ran the numbers and said, "I'm not making my money with WWE. I'm damn sure not making my money with XFL.
Right,
got to cut the loose end and finish that off, because of course there's no way he's gonna sacrifice his WWE for something that he's trying to do on the side." So I think their hands were tied, and it's not looking good for him either way right now. So had to let XFL go.
Yeah, the XFL was doing its job. We were getting to see these players that we basically all forgotten about. And look what, some of them are now in the NFL because of it. So if I'm outside looking in and I have money, I'm seeing this that, hey, this actually does work. Regardless of why it went down, there needs to be something in place, whether it's a season or not, but something in place to get these guys looked at, because there was a lot of talent in just that first year of the XFL. We seen it. It wasn't fake talent. It was legitimate guys that could play in the league. And we were just getting started with our teams. We were already talking trash. Man, it just when you posted that, man, it's heartbreaking, dude. I mean, like, I started getting into it quickly, and I think a lot of people were. Hopefully, somebody will pick that up and run with it.
Yeah. Yeah. The one thing I had about the XFL was that, yes, the players are talented, but it's kind of hard to judge their talent because they're playing against other guys who aren't good enough to play in the NFL. And then once they get plugged into the NFL, now they're playing against the best of the best. Their skill level diminishes severely. Now it'll be interesting to see how the two main guys that we know of, PJ Walker and Tamu, whatever his name is, he's going to back up Patrick Mahomes.
Mm-hmm.
It'll be interesting to see how they do, if they even do anything, because as far as the Pat Mahomes backup is, unless Pat Mahomes gets hurt, you're not touching that football. So, I mean, I would rather be on an NFL team and be the backup than not have a job right now. So they made out, but I wonder if it'll even make a difference in 2 or 3 years.
I think PJ Walker's feet work don't lie. It don't matter who's chasing him down. That's some of the best feet work that I've seen in a long time in the NFL football. I think he's going to stick around. I don't know about Tamu. He wasn't moving like PJ, but I mean, I agree with you. I think the talent wasn't as good, but the way he was moving in and out of the pocket, keeping his head downfield, doing the things he was doing, that's something that it doesn't matter what talent's on the field. He'll do it the same way in the NFL.
Yeah. And I wonder if they'll utilize him a lot more than they would Tamu, because the Panthers have him and Teddy Bridgewater. So
He'll be used differently. He don't have to be the starting quarterback.
mm-hmm.
He can go in there for those packages and stuff. So
Right.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how he is utilized, because I think they could have basically an upgraded version of like a Gardner Minshew with him, somebody that can escape pretty much any moment, any unescapable time. He's going to be able to escape it,
Mm-hmm.
and it's crazy. Sucks that the XFL called it quits, but like you guys said, it is good for those few. Coronavirus causing everything to call it quits. Eventually, UFC 249 had to tap out. Guys, this is one that we've been following week after week after week since it was announced, 6 months ago, that it was going to be Tony and Khabib fighting here. Sucks that fight got canceled, but now it sucks even more that the whole event is canceled. But I don't know. Maybe it's for the best, because we've been saying that they are playing with fire, putting Tony in there with somebody else. Maybe this preserves that opportunity for a Tony and Khabib sometime this year.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, if this stuff can get cleared up by June and they can put on a fight for July 4th or something like that, they always love to do a huge card for July 4th. If they can do something like that, that'd be great. And I will sacrifice this for that, because sure, could be Tony Ferguson and Justin Gaethje would have been very interesting to watch. I'd rather see Khabib and Tony, because that's the big question. And if he would have actually fought Gaethje, that would have been put on hold for sure.
Yeah, no doubt. The one thing that I worry about is I'm not sure when Ramadan is this year.
August.
It is in August.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I know Khabib likes to take off for Ramadan, so.
Yep.
I
mean, go ahead.
I was going to say, deep down, none of us thought this fight was really going to happen. I mean, we talked about it and we were excited when they announced it, even though it wasn't Habib. But deep down, you knew this fight wasn't going to take place during this pandemic. I mean, let's face it. And I think Dana White didn't either. He just wanted to keep it something relevant for a minute.
Yeah. I mean, he fought tooth and nail. I thought by him choosing to do it on an Indian reservation, that's his best chance. And I guess the executives of Disney and ESPN stepped in and said, "Hey, we can't let you do this stuff." And I totally get it from their standpoint. Imagine if some sort of outbreak would have happened and everyone on that card would have gotten coronavirus or something crazy. And
He would have been.
they were gonna test and everything like that, but you can be asymptomatic and still carry the virus, and a bunch of craziness can happen. And we all know that, Dana White especially isn't necessarily the cleanest guy, and people have probably gotten away with missing weight by holding towels and by doing whatever the fuck else they do. So imagine if one of his big stars had a slight fever or something and they just waved it off or whatever and didn't want to acknowledge it.
Yep.
As a giant organization like Disney, I wouldn't run that risk either. And it was against the wishes of the California government to do that in the first place. So, I mean, I totally get it. Props to Dana for trying to do it, but in the long run, just couldn't happen.
Yeah, and Dana came out and made the official announcement that it was completely off, completely canceled. But he said that all fighters under contract and all fighters that were stepping up to be in these fights were going to get paid and they were going to get taken care of. And he did promise, and I don't know if this is a slip of where he was talking about on the reservation that he was going to hold it, but he did slip and mention Tachi Palace, which is a small place in the middle of nowhere south of Fresno in California. And I guess that's where he was planning on hosting it, and said that to thank them for their willingness to go along with him, that they're going to get an event in the future. And he said it'll be a big card. So maybe that will be the 4th of July card. If it's all cleared up by then, will emanate from Tachi Palace there in California.
That's interesting.
Yeah. But
what the turnout would be like for that kind of deal.
I don't know. People will go.
Absolutely.
Man, Indian reservations are sick. I go to Cherokee all the time, or I used to. I mean, you got casinos, liquor. It's gonna be packed, dude, just like anywhere else.
Right.
I mean, they're gonna have to. I don't see this place, even like Cherokee Casino that I go to on Indian reservations. It's big, but it's not like ginormous. They're gonna have to. They're gonna put a big card on. They're gonna have to throw some money behind it. Something's gonna have to be built, or I don't see them having the space inside to run a huge card, if that makes sense. I mean, they're going to have to throw some money behind that.
Yeah. Have you guys heard about Dana's Fight Island that he's been talking about?
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
That's still going on too. And he's building the infrastructure there. And I'm very interested to see what this is all about. And I don't know if this is just in response for coronavirus or if this is going to be a thing going to do for the foreseeable future.
How sick of a reality show is that? Like, you're just like out shopping, and all of a sudden these two fighters see each other and they just beat the shit out of each other, like Fight Island. Yeah, like music starts playing when they see each other. You know what I mean?
Yep.
I mean,
it sounds like a movie that we've seen where
kind of like Mortal Kombat.
That's what I was gonna get to. It was one of these like tournament style kung fu movies that we've seen so much of in the 80s and 90s.
Mm-hmm.
It's coming to fruition. Dana White's the puppet master. It's crazy.
Israel Adesanya versus Shao Kahn.
But with Fighter Island, Dana White is pretty much promising or touting that the UFC is going to be the first of the major professional sports to come back. So he's really trying to be that first one. Jerome got in on the comments saying that a battle royale, get a bunch of guys in there to fight for Fighter Island. That'd be fucking nuts.
Yeah.
But he's vowing to be the first one back. But Major League Baseball has a plan, and they say it's gonna be May.
Brittany.
No, that's JT.
That's JT, homie. Get your 90s pop stars right.
Oh shit. Yeah, they were together, right?
That's
Close
true.
enough.
That's true. They did date. But not to branch off onto that weird subject, but baseball's been officially postponed for 19 days now. They initially said that they were only going to be shut down for 14 days. 2 weeks was all it was supposed to be delayed. We're now past that and counting. But they do have tentative plans that they're working on, ironing out details on to potentially be able to reopen the season in May, hopefully by Memorial Day. Zach, the news of them just potentially having baseball back, what does that do for you?
It's lovely. It's lovely news. Do we know if they're going to try to do the whole thing in Arizona like they were talking about?
Yeah, that is going to be part of it, that all teams would have to play in Arizona. So that adds a little bit of a complication. Obviously season ticket holders and stuff like that aren't going to be able to make it to every game whenever they live in Chicago, but the games in Arizona, what have you. But they're not going to be allowed at these games anyway because no fans are going to be in attendance.
Mm-hmm.
So there is a lot to it, but one of the biggest things that they're proposing is that pretty much every day that you play will be a 7-inning doubleheader.
Interesting.
So you would play
innings.
I mean, I guess you would play extra innings if there are extra innings, but if the game regular is 3-2 at the end of 7, they call that a ball game and move on to the start of the next new game.
I like it.
You got to do it. But how many games are won in the ninth inning?
A lot.
Yeah, that's the only thing. You're gonna have that. You're still gonna have that red flag or that that asterisk beside it.
Yeah, I think it'll be a lot harder, especially if you're going against a good starter that can last long in the game. You might be able to finish the entire game in 7 innings, because that's normally what a good starter can produce for you is 7 solid innings.
It's true.
But if you're pumping out double headers, you're not going to have that same starter available every 5 games.
That is true.
You're going to have to stretch him out to every 4 or 5 days. So that means you're going to have a lot of games where you're getting the openers, where you're getting basically bullpen games from the start. And that's where you're going to get the offensive explosions and stuff like that. So as far as that's concerned, you're still going to get a good balance of offensive days and your outstanding standout pitching days.
Yeah, definitely.
It will give guys I guess you could call it a 2020 complete game if you want to, because like you said, those guys that can normally go out there and hurl for 7 innings, that's going to be a complete game this year. So that would be a little bit weird.
Yeah. I think it's a very good compromise. I mean, shit, I'm ready for anything at this point. I think a lot of people are too. So anything they can do, and this is a relatively good move. It mitigates the travel, so that mitigates the potential for exposure and stuff like that. So it makes a lot of sense. I can't name names, but I have seen a lot of talks on Twitter that players are not a fan of it, at least several players. And I guess I get that. A lot of people are probably used to playing in their home ballpark, and I'm sure they have homes there. But if they're playing every single game in Arizona, you're going to spend the majority of the year there. And that's kind of complicated, especially for those players with families. But I mean, if you think about it from the MLB standpoint, they are not making any money right now when they should be making millions. So they're in the same boat as everybody else.
Yeah, and you got to think, these guys are being asked to be removed from their families during a pandemic, during a time when we don't know what's going to happen next. So their wives, their children, somebody like that could come down with this while they're in isolation with their team, and there's nothing they can do about it. There's no way that they can even go and see them or whatever. Yeah, but it's only for 4.5 months.
Let me say this. They got to, okay, you got McDonald's workers that are essential, right?
Mm-hmm.
You got Zach, he's essential, right? They ain't making millions and millions of dollars. They can find arrangements how to quarantine themselves from their family for this short period of time. I mean, my God, they're making millions of dollars. So, I mean, their family's got whatever they need at home. I mean, that's just something they'll have to sacrifice they have to make. I mean, why does the Burger King or McDonald's worker have to go to work and give it to their family? You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Mhm.
that's a very valid point. And
Yeah.
a,
That's
a
just
lot
how
of
I feel.
a lot of experts have come out and said that, people that are in good health have a lot less chance of being severely affected by the disease. If you look at the NBA players that have contracted the disease, as far as I can tell, they're fine. I think even Donovan Mitchell didn't show any signs. He was completely asymptomatic the entire time. So I don't know what that says about, you can't blanket that statement over every athlete, but they might be okay. And like you said, if the poor old grocery bag boy has to come into work and potentially expose grandma to coronavirus, why can't this millionaire do the same?
Mm-hmm.
Nope. And just to get back on topic a little bit, some of the other rules that are being agreed to and that they're trying to iron out the details for is it would implement the use of the electronic strike zone, something that they've already tested in the minor leagues and something that they've already experimented with a little bit. But now it would be used in real big league games. This would be their reasoning so that they can give the umpires enough distance behind the catcher to give him social distancing. So I mean, it makes sense. It checks out. But I think this is MLB's way to force this in there as a permanent thing.
Yeah.
Something that we would likely get out of all this is that players would get to wear microphones now. So we would get to have more of that on-field interaction because you're not going to have the fans in the crowd and stuff like that. That's something that they can give to us this year that will be an exciting thing and encourage us to stay home and watch the game on TV. Let's hear what Javi Baez has to say. Let's hear what Xander Bogaerts and Rafael Devers are talking about in between plays. That's the type of stuff that's going to attract fans. That's the type of stuff that we loved in the XFL when they would get right up in their face at the end of a play and they would be huffing and puffing talking about that punt return that they just had or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
I'm for it. I like it.
Yeah.
I don't want a lot of these things permanently in baseball. I don't want the 7-inning double headers to be a permanent thing. But you know what? Just to get some baseball going for this year, I'm willing to say, fuck it, let's do it. Maybe put, some kind of caveat on guys that like rack up complete games or guys that rack up, certain stats.
Patrick.
Yeah, hitting stats, your home runs and stuff like that will actually be lower because you're going to get less at bats this season.
Mm-hmm.
If you're cutting them short after 7, that's eliminating a lot of at bats that a lot of these guys are getting late in games.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It'll be interesting to see. A lot of stats will be thrown off. I wonder if one day this keeps guys maybe out of the Hall of Fame, but that's a conversation for another day on another episode.
Yeah.
Do you guys have anything else that you want to add to this episode or anything else that you just got to say and get off your chest?
I think this is a perfect time for the National League to come out and finally implement the designated hitter. If teams are going to have to do double headers every day, that's wearing on your pitchers as it is. And you're going to have to try to go out and hit when you just pitched 3-4 days ago and you're pitching today and you're not going to have a day off. I don't know. I think this is a perfect time to implement that. It's too late already. The American League is way ahead on this. Frankly, I don't give a shit about watching a pitcher strike out or at the best bunt. They hardly ever get home runs. They hardly ever hit well. Just give up. Put the designated hitter in there. This is the year to do it. And that's my piece on that.
Justin, you were a pitcher in high school. Were you a guy that could rake?
Nah, I can't. I could hit, but I'm slow. That's my problem. I could hit it to the fence and get a single. Like it definitely wasn't my forte when I did pitch. I mean, I would get base hits and stuff, but I get pitch run for stuff like that. So if I was in the major leagues, I definitely wouldn't want to focus on both. If
Right.
that makes sense. I mean, I always try to hit it out of the park if I could, and if I didn't, then I was stuck at first.
And
But-
and if a team has a dual threat like a Shohei, they can just plug him in as their DH.
Yeah,
There
that's
you
their
go.
choice. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's one of the beauties of the new rules is the Shohei rule basically allows him to count as a regular player, so he doesn't count against the amount of pitchers that the Angels can carry on their lineup. So
Wow.
they basically get an extra pitcher. They just have to designate one guy down to the minors, one of their bullpen guys or whatever, down to the minors on days that Shohei pitches.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, they basically came up with a new rule for this dude already.
Yeah, I think MLB is chomping at the bit to have somebody like him.
Yeah, we're already talking about overrated and underrated this episode. Why not talk about Shohei a little bit? Anyway, guys, I'm out of stuff to talk about, but Justin, I do want to add real quick before we get off here, that shirt that you're wearing is fucking awesome. I really like that. What does that say on it? Hakuna Witaka?
Yeah, that's the new podcast shirt.
Whoever made that is good at making shirts.
Where did you get that, Justin? Tell everybody where you got that.
At shop.spreadshirt.com/nest.
There you go. That's
We
where
have a bunch of different shirts on there.
that's where you can go to get the shirt that Justin is wearing now. And anybody that goes out and buys one of our Nest Podcast t-shirts, you're going to get entered into a drawing to win something cool at the end of the year. We haven't gone out and gotten it yet because we're waiting to see how much money we're going to collect, because all the proceeds from these shirts go to that fund. So anybody that buys something, you're just chipping in to make that prize bigger and bigger and bigger. Who knows, by the end of this thing, we may end up with an autographed jersey or an autographed helmet or something like that. So guys, just keep going out buying the shirts. Thank you for everybody that has. Each month we're trying to roll out a new design. So check back. You might not like the ones that are out there now, but you might like the ones that are out there tomorrow. Thank you guys for listening. We come to you live every Monday night here on the Nest Podcast. You can catch us on Facebook and YouTube Live. And we will be back this Thursday night with a couple of audio engineers to talk about their experiences in the rock and roll industry, some of the bands that they've played for and recorded, and some of the trials and tribulations and the learning that has occurred on the job of being an audio engineer and a sound guy. Zach, I know you're going to really like that episode. You're going to have a lot of fun talking to them about the sound quality and things like that. But tune back in Thursday night whenever we broadcast live again. And then if not, we'll see you back here next Monday night for the Nest Podcast. Peace.
Thanks for listening. New episodes are recorded every week.